Have you been thinking about your financial future? Maybe even about when or whether you will ever be able to stop work. I've got the perfect gift for you. It's a free online audit that's been taken by over 1,100 people already. And you want to know the shocking fact? They are scoring on average 53.1% of readiness. That means that they're only 50% ready, both mentally or financially, for their futures, for maybe retirement or certainly work downsizing. Why don't you take the audit and see how you score? Are you more prepared or are you less prepared? Don't worry, whatever the answer, I produced a clear and precise PDF report for you based on your score that will give you the next steps that you need to take to both improve your score and improve your readiness to retire wealthy. Click the link below. Hello and welcome to this episode. What if the end of your career wasn't about a loss, but actually an invitation to create a wealthy life, or maybe even a bloody wealthy life, as my guest Jessica said in her chapter? You'll notice in this episode of A Wealthy Life, I'm joined by author, retreat leader, transformational guide, and old friend, Jessica McGregor Johnson. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you very much, Vicky. It's lovely to see you. It's been a while.
Yes.
And it's great to come on and talk about this because it's something close to my heart, and I know it's close to yours too.
Absolutely. So we've both contributed powerful chapters, if I might say so on our behalf, to Retire Inspire 2, which is a book with 22 authors, people who are living the life, coming together to contribute their versions of what it means to be retired in the modern age, if you like. And we're exploring, I suppose, one of the biggest unspoken truths about retirement. It can feel like an identity crisis, but it actually could be the biggest opportunity you ever get to reinvent yourself. As I said in my chapter, we always say to one another, oh, what do you do? Which is all about our jobs. What if somebody said, what are you passionate about? How do you spend your time? Wouldn't that be more exciting and lead to probably better conversations? So together, Jessica and I are going to unpack what happens when your job title disappears. Potentially the wage, the income stops, and definitely that daily routine vanishes. So whether you're counting down your days to retirement, fearing its arrival, or maybe you're even facing it unexpectedly, we want this conversation to challenge the way you think about what retirement means to you and what it could mean for you. It isn't about drifting, it's about designing what comes next. And I want you to press pause, grab your notebook, bring your curiosity, maybe even your partner if they're around, get them to listen. And let's talk about reinvention, resilience, and what it means to retire with purpose. So, Jessica, again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time because I know what a busy lady you are. We squeezed this in between your sailing and visiting family and riding horses and being with your dog, you know.
Absolutely.
But I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, quite frankly, I'm squeezing you in between a grandson and a swim. So it's getting our diaries to coordinate where we've got a little gap that we can actually put other things in. But that's the point of this, isn't it? And I don't consider myself old. I'm still, I can claim this, still pre-retirement age. But I feel like I've been doing this for years, and I know that you have.
I have, and I'm post-retirement age, but I love what I do, so I kind of mix and match, and I think it's an interesting thing what you say about. I work with people all the time in retirement retreats, and one of the things that is the biggest thing is, as you said, the loss of identity, and there's a huge fear there because we've been asked for the last 40 odd years, what do you do? And I remember I had somebody who came on retreat and he literally had retired the day before and he came on retreat and he went, I think I need another job. And I'm like, no, 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 you don't need another job. Really, you don't need another job. You just need another identity. And he's like,
Yes.
oh, what does that mean? And that was so interesting. He hadn't even thought about that. He
Mm,
hadn't even thought about the fact that his job was his identity.
yeah.
And we came up with the phrase, what would it look like to live a bloody wonderful life? And by the end of the weekend, he was like, I don't have time for a new job. I'm like, I know.
And
And
just because you mention a man, then, is there a difference between men and women? Are men more attached to their work identities than women? Are women finding it easier, or is it the same for both?
I think I think it probably is a little bit more difficult for men. It very much depends what role they've played in their life, in their marriage, and those kind of things. I mean, I've had a couple who came on retreat, and she actually had a more high-powered job than her, and that was very hard for her to let go, whereas he was much more at ease. Because one of the things that I like to look at is where's the balance in retirement as a couple?
Mm,
It's not about doing, following one person's passion. It's about following both passions and finding room for both things that you like. And I
mm,
think that's really important too. It's a classic story of the man who retired, and the first week his wife went shopping, and when she came home he'd rearranged all the kitchen cupboards because he needed something to do, and she was like, this is my domain, go away. Find something that you can do that does not mean that you're encroaching on my world.
yeah.
And I think that's really important too.
Yes. Oh, and but also equally when your partner retires, not to just give them a load of DIY jobs that they haven't done all the time they were working because they were so busy. So you hinted at fear there that
Mhm.
people are afraid. Do you think fear is the greatest emotion that people are facing when they're retiring? The only emotion, or is there more?
I think it's one of the emotions. It is a fear, and I. What's interesting is I wouldn't think that people would necessarily identify that word as a fear. I think people feel very daunted by it. It's an unknown. I mean, whenever we're faced with an unknown, fear is one of the emotions that arises. But people can be very daunted by it. They don't know how to approach it, and I think that's really important to understand that they can't do what they've always done. They have to approach it differently, and it's very much. It's funny. I've had people say to me, "It feels very selfish," and I'm like, "Good."
Oh,
Good, actually, because it's time to put self first, not the company you work for, not the role you've had, not the having to earn an income, all that kind of thing. It's like, what are you passionate about? And once people get over that feeling of, can I really focus on me? Then they start to understand that actually they can choose what they want and how they want to live the next era of life. And my thing is make that the best era.
mm,
You've worked hard all this time, you've put the wealth aside, you've got hopefully all that sorted. So now what are you going to do? I was talking with a financial planner recently, and he was saying the biggest questions people have is, what am I going to do?
mm.
Not how
And
am I
it,
going to pay for it, but what am I going to do?
yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot of talk about how at the moment, any sort of financial advice you get, if you haven't done this thinking, you're going into the financial advisor going, I need this amount of money. But if you haven't thought about all the extra fun that you want to have, you're not preparing for that. And that sort of ties in with a bit. I think you talked about the difference of being retired rather than choosing to retire. And really, that was the
Yeah.
essence of this book. I mean, I'm still, I wish I could go back and change the title of it, but I called it The Wealthy Retirement Plan. And I think coming out in 2019,
Mm.
it's a tricky word, retirement, and making a retirement plan isn't going to be a sexy title. I didn't know about AI back then, and I made a sexier title for it. But for me, the other side is the revolutionary guide to living the rest of your life in style. What style do you want to live your life in? And I
Mhm.
talk about a non-traditional retirement, which is you're choosing to retire. So rather than waiting for someone to bring this axe down on the back of your neck and go, that's it, you're past your useful age, totally not true in this day and age.
No, not at all.
You are redundant. You are useless to me in the organization. I no longer want you. I'm no longer valuing all of your experience. I'm casting
Yeah.
you out.
Or you're too expensive.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because you've risen up the ranks, I'd rather have a cheaper version. Very good.
Yeah, yeah.
But push shove, we could take that away by saying, well, hold on a second, I'm not going to wait till I'm 65 or 66 or 67. I mean, that's the government's permission to claim your 900, if you're in the UK, 900 pounds a month, which is pittance, really. I mean, it's going to be a hell of a lot to some people if they haven't sorted it out. But that government pension is what seems to be shaping everybody's lives, going, well, I can't retire because I'm waiting for that. Well, hold on a second. If you've done, you mentioned financial planning, but generally anything else, any sort of planning, if you don't want to work full time, you could work part time, which means you could probably, depending on what you've got in the way of investments, actually stop work earlier. I mean, I stopped proper work when I was 48. Granted, I was kicked out, I was made redundant. What about you? When did you stop doing a proper job?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been coaching now for 22 years. And that came out because I changed countries, didn't speak the language, had to do something, and I liked the idea of helping people find answers. But I mean, I haven't worked full time for a long, long time because I don't need to, and because I've got many other interests that I want to pursue. And I started doing the retirement retreats because I got more and more people coming out who were in that position. And what was
Mm,
really interesting, Vicky, is that they didn't know that they could retire financially
they hadn't asked.
until I went, okay, you have to look at this. And then they would come back and go, actually, I've been told that I can. And that was a whole new window opening for people. And so I'm always saying to people, find out. Don't guess, find out. Go to
Totally.
somebody who can absolutely help you assess what you've got and what you need to do if you need to do something. So you can plan it forward because it's all very well to kind of look at your retirement when you're at retirement age. But in fact, I think the earlier you do it, the better. I had a couple out and he was at retirement age and she was 3 or so years off and she didn't think she was going to kind of, do much on the retreat. And I'm like, no, 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 we're going to work out your retirement too.
Yeah.
Because if you do this now, you know exactly where you're going to be in 3 years' time and
Yeah.
what you want to do and how you want to change your life now. So it's an easy step into, and
I'd say bring it back into your 40s, your 50s, and if you're listening and you're in your 20s and your 30s, it is never too soon to realize that this is actually something you can control and not give that control off to somebody else. This is something you can shape, which sort of ties into all this idea of purpose, isn't it? I was speaking to someone the other day, and I've known them for ages through speaking with them. They are pretty well loaded. There's no mortgage. They've got a wage and a healthy wage coming in, but they've got tons of investments and savings. There's absolutely no reason why they're working, and they hate the job that they are in. They loathe the job that they're in. They've
yeah,
got it's soul destroying. They have to get up early. They're working internationally with all different sorts of teams and coordinating things. There's always stress. They're always picking up what ball someone else has dropped, and that messes up their plan for the evening because then they've got to get in there and fix something with a client before a client complains because somebody somewhere down the line couldn't be bothered to do it. And I just keep saying, why don't you retire? You've got the money, you're loaded. Just retire, just retire. If I had the money you had, I would absolutely not be working. And I think that it's that bridge between here and there, the before retirement and the after retirement, that bridge, don't know how to cross into that space.
no,
And then because I don't have the bridge, I can't imagine what's on the other side. Now
yeah.
they've reduced hours. Maybe that's their not fake bridge, but their temporary bridge. They
Hmm.
put in a temporary bridge there. But what they're doing is just, sort of like scrolling through local events and they'll go to this event or that event. That purpose, that piece that we spoke about earlier on, that's not there. And how do you help? Because what would be really good out of this conversation is if we could leave someone with a thought nugget that they could then work on and then they can get in touch for more help. How do you start that piece around, well, what is my purpose? My whole purpose for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years has been whatever this job, career, profession is.
Hmm.
How can I even think of another purpose? Or, if you've been the mother in the house, my purpose has been how I keep my family alive while holding down this job. Because typically the actual feeding and keeping everybody alive bit is the mother's role. How do you change that piece of thinking?
Well, firstly, I changed the word because purpose has a real heaviness to it, I think. Oh my God, I've got to find a purpose. I've got to go and save the world. I've got to go and do this. And I think that's one of the things that puts people off because they can't find something big enough that sounds like a purpose.
Right, very
Being a
good.
great grandparent can be a passion, which is much better than trying to find a purpose. And so when I'm working with people, I try to eliminate that word as much as possible because it's too big a word for people to fill. And so if to anybody listening this, if you're thinking you have to find a purpose, just try this one on. Your purpose is to have a fun and enjoyable life. And whatever fits that, whatever passion gives you fun, excitement, enjoyment, fulfillment, that's what you're looking for. And I think that makes it just that shift in idea can really help people because then when you start to look at things that you love, start to look at things that you're passionate about, start to look at the things that have got lost along the way. For me, a lot of it is I like to kind of unpack the box called John or Jane or whoever you are and go, what have you forgotten about yourself in the last 40 years? What have you not had time to do in the last 40 years because you've been so focused on that job?
Mm,
What bits and elements of yourself would you like to bring back into life? And interesting, a lot of time for people, it's about creativity in whatever form that means. And that doesn't mean you necessarily have to go and be a painter. It could be about singing, it could be about creating something.
yeah,
And we often lose that creative side of ourselves.
because we're too
And
exhausted.
exactly, and we don't have the time.
Mm.
And finding something that feels like we are creating can often create new passions for ourselves. So yeah, for me, I'm like eliminate the word purpose. It's more about passion and what
It's
are you passionate about in
Yeah.
life?
It's interesting because you're eliminating the word purpose and creating a bloody wonderful life is very much like my sentence, what would you do if you never had to work another day just to pay the bills? If you
Exactly.
didn't have to pay the bills, let's just think about that for a minute. What if you didn't have to worry about paying the bills? What would you do? Now, I never said stop work. I'm just playing with the idea of what if you didn't have to work to pay the bills? You could still work. I mean,
Hmm.
this is the thing, isn't it? You could still, like you're doing, don't we don't have to work to pay the bills, but we choose to work because we've still got brain cells that we want to keep alive. And also, again, for me is I have a mission, like I still want to help people have fun, have a wealthy life like I have. And I think although we're using different words, that's effectively a paraphrase of what you're doing with your retreats is helping people have that bloody wonderful life in whatever form, a bit more into the retreat and retirement retreat mode. But you've been doing retreats for
For years.
years.
Yeah.
What were you? Go on, plug it. You're the
Uh,
something.
voted one of the top 10 retreats for change.
Woohoo! There you go. But
There you
in
go.
something by the change.
Queen of retreats.
There you go. So
Yeah.
that was the bit. I knew some queen had
Yes.
anointed you.
Absolutely. But Vicky, there's another thing, and I want to go back to that we were talking about money and income and things like
Mm.
that. Interestingly, what I have come across a lot of times is that the loss of income, the idea of not earning money and relying on the fact that I've got money and I've got wealth. And it's not that people don't have the money there, it's the psychological thing of not earning anymore.
Okay.
And that's a really interesting side of it as well. It's like, okay, am I valuable if I don't earn?
Yeah.
And that's something that always needs to be at least addressed and looked at when you're starting to look at retirement, because where it's about feeling valuable in other places in your life.
You're
Because
equating because this has been your purpose for so long and what you get in return, because you probably at work don't get thank yous and
No,
acknowledgement and you don't feel valued. The only value comes into your bank account through the
yes.
wage. If that's removed, how are you valued in your life if I take away your wages?
Exactly. And it's
Mm,
a big thing for some people. You know, I've had these conversations a lot. It's like, okay, so where else are you valuable? Where else?
yeah,
And that's also very much tied into how we contribute. As human beings, to feel good about ourselves, we want to contribute in some ways. And that can be in our families, it can be in our communities. You know, I know somebody who their village started to created this wonderful thing of once a month everybody brought all their broken bits of pieces to the village hall, and all the tinkerers and the people who love mending things came along and tinkered and mended things, and it created a community. It brought the village together, but it also created the feeling of being valued for all those people who love to mend things. They weren't getting paid for it. It
yeah.
was purely for community only. But that whole thing of how am I valued and where do I see my own value in this world is also incredibly important. And it's a question you need to start asking yourself. Like, where
Mm.
else do I contribute and where else can I feel valuable?
It's interesting, isn't it? So some really, really good words are coming out. So it's about your passion, it's about your values. But let's write those down so I can remember those in a minute. So it's about your passion, it's about your values. I think I did something again, going back to that orange book where I was talking about the four M's. And so this idea that if we, go back down the generations and actually start maybe even having these conversations with our children and our grandchildren, don't define yourself by a job, because I am just going to drop in AI, because we had that conversation before we came online.
Mm,
AI is going to change everything, and therefore we need to go back down the line, because people aren't going to be waiting till they're 65 to
no.
retire, because they are going to be forced out of it. And so my thing was, you know, instead of what do you do, what are you passionate about? And I came up with the four M's. They're only M's just so that I could have four M's. Quite frankly, they've got other words that would have worked, but then they wouldn't have been the four M's.
Yeah.
And that is, for example, your mission. And your mission is like your passion or purpose. It's
Hmm.
it's again, and mission makes it sound quite strong, but the link was to, like corporates, we have the mission. What's the big vision here? What is the
Yeah.
thing that you love? But then tie that in with memories. When you have that final moment, if you're lucky to get a final moment before your final moment, what is it that you want to have come into your head? All the happy thoughts that you want to have. What do you want your memories? And that's just as important as building up your bank account, because at the end of it, the bank account's going to go to everybody else. It's
Hmm.
the memories that you've had on the way. And quite frankly, you're going to live to be that old, and you're going to live to be that old, that healthily. If we bear in mind, in the old days, we used to die in our 50s and 60s. Now we're living well into our 80s, 90s, and beyond. And exponentially, the health service is able to fix us more and more. So we're going to live longer. We're going to live longer, more healthily. You've got a long time to make memories there.
Hmm.
If you think you came out of school, make the round numbers, you came out at 20, you retire at 60, that's 40. If you retire at 60 and you live to 100, that's 40. You've got a
Yeah.
whole, second life
Yeah.
that is to be filled, to be funded, but to be
Hmm.
filled. And if you can't think about what memories you want to make, then you're going to find it a lot harder to think of how to fill that up. And of course, then I went with multi-generational, and you talked about family. There will be a period in your life, because again, your parents will be living till longer, that you'll have some time with your older parents, and then you'll have time with your children when they get round to wanting time with you, and then you're going to get time with grandchildren if you have them. And if you don't have your own breeding line, then you're going to have brothers and sisters and cousins and nieces and all of this. Or you can just go adopt adopt somebody else's kids or old folk or pets or anything else that you want to look alike. But also, multi-generational can be how you can share this knowledge.
Hmm.
Do what you're doing with younger and younger people. And then the fourth one was means, which was, by what mean do you make your money? So
Yeah.
I think that really ties in with your passion, your
Hmm.
values. And you've mentioned the financial advisor in here being aware of how you're generating that wealth.
Yeah. And you know, there was a very interesting book by a woman called Bonnie Ware, and she was a palliative care nurse. And she talked about the 5 regrets that people had. And none of them ever said, I wish I'd worked more. I wish I had been in the office more. The regrets were all about, I wish I'd left work earlier. I wish I'd spent more time with my family. I wish I'd had more fun in my life. And you know, that all ties in with this. It's all about, you know, what choices are you making? And I really, I think we've got out of the habit of making choices for ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's so easy to go along with what the kind of the flow of life that everybody else expects us to have.
Mm,
And I can remember when I moved to southern Spain, I made a very conscious choice to not go back into that rat race, to not go back into there, to create a different life.
yeah.
And I've had so many people look at our lifestyle because we both have businesses, therefore we're masters of our own time. Therefore, if we want to travel, we can travel. Go, you're so lucky. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, it's a
No, I'm not.
design.
I made a choice.
Yes,
And retiring when we want to retire is a choice. And
absolutely.
it's about understanding that, yes, you have to work it out. You have to work out the figures and everything else, but you also have to kind of almost say to yourself, I'm worth it, to quote a horrible ad.
Oh,
I'm worth it because
yeah.
I am worth it. I don't have to work until the government tells me when I can retire. I
Mm,
can I can choose, and it's that whole thing of making those choices. And
mm.
some people might listen to say, well, I don't have that choice. And I'm like, well, maybe not, but maybe there's a slightly different choice that you can make. And I think that's an important part of it too.
Yeah, you might not have the choice to not wait till the government says, but that doesn't mean to say that you don't have a choice when you get your retirement pension from the government, if that's what you're going to rely on. But these days, there's lots of workplace pensions as well. You're going to be in a position where there are still some choices open to you. You might
Hmm.
not be cruising around the world, but then I don't know that a lot of people cruise around the world for a lot of the time because that too can get boring, and then you find other things that you become passionate in as your world opens. So
Yeah. And I mean, I had a client years and years ago who worked with a multinational company, hated it, absolutely loathed it. And I finally got him to resign. And he went off and he did this wonderful 3-month bike tour and absolutely loved it. And when he came back, he said, I said, what's the main lesson you've learnt? And he had, you know, the big house and the fancy cars and all that kind of stuff. And he went, I can live out of 2 panniers. And I went,
yes.
oh, okay. What does that mean? And he went, it means I'm going to go and live a fantastic life in Spain and I'm going to run a kite surfing shop. And I went, perfect,
Awesome.
perfect.
Yeah.
And because suddenly accruing all this wealth
Stuff.
actually wasn't what he wanted. He had enough. He could sell the house and buy outright in Spain and all that kind of stuff. He wanted a life.
Yeah.
And that life wasn't retirement, interestingly, but it was a different life. And
Yes.
that's the thing. And I think, you know, I think it'd be lovely if we could just get rid of the word retirement in a way, because it's
Yes.
always like leave behind the slog you don't like and do whatever it is, whether that's earning money if you want to earn money or not, with the things you like.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love the fact that you brought up the word enough. I use the word enough a lot. You know,
Hmm.
do you have enough? Do you know that you have enough? How much do you need? Do you have enough? And then you can have more than enough.
Yeah.
And you can have much more than enough if you want.
Yeah.
I'm not limiting you, but if you don't know how much you need and you don't know that you have enough,
Hmm.
you're already constrained because you are desperate to try and find how you can make more because you don't know that you have enough. And it sounds to me like that guy, not only did he have enough, he had more than enough, and he probably had much more than enough,
Hmm.
and realized that if he just went down to enough more than enough, he could be doing something completely different. I mean, who wants to? I mean, I don't know how hot it is for you in Spain, but I don't know what heat wave. You know how we had lockdown 1, 2, 3. This year we're having heat wave 1, 2, 3. I think we're somewhere between heat wave 3 and heat wave 4 or something for the UK. So obviously we're all like flopping around going, oh, we can't cope because we don't have aircon in this country. The sales, if only we knew, the sales of fans have gone through the roofs. That's where you should have bought your shares. So all of that stuff's going on. Who wants to be sitting on a train in a suit to go to work?
Yeah.
This has even made the news that people are having conversations about whether men can go to work in smart shorts
Hmm.
with a jacket. I mean, why can't they just go to work in shorts with a shirt and a
Yeah.
tie if necessary? I mean, and some guys on buses, I think it might even have been in Spain, who then wore skirts because the women were allowed to wear skirts. The men were told the uniform was trousers. So all the bus drivers put skirts on. I mean, we're just balmy with the weather, aren't we? But
Yeah.
you don't have to do those jobs that won't let you wear a pair of shorts. And what about you? You look smart on the top. I know I look reasonably okay on the top, but you definitely don't want to go down there because I just got a pair of shorts on and I don't care.
So have I.
And I didn't have to ask permission whether I was allowed to wear a
No,
pair of shorts. So
no.
yeah, it's
And
just it's funny, isn't it? So yeah, I could carry on talking about this all the time. I think I think the key things that I've got out of here is, if we put them back in order again, is knowing that you have enough, knowing that you have a choice, discovering what your passion is.
mhm.
And that's sort of the reinvention that you take people through. And we've talked about the emotion and the fact that people don't even recognize really that it's fear. If you were again to leave someone, and I think I might have asked this question in a different way, but leave someone with a to do, what would the to do be that would help them skip over the fear, the panic, the stuck?
Well, it's funny because one of the things I say in the book is that, and I quote a guy called Dr. Riley Moynes, who gave a great TED talk, and he said there's four stages of retirement. The first stage is vacation; everybody has a nice long vacation, and then the second stage is fear, of like, oh my God, who am I? What am I? And they go into this loss and fear. And the third stage is when you think you have to go and get the other job. But the fourth stage, which is the one that I like to do, let's go from first stage to fourth stage and forget the second and third, is reinvent.
Mm,
And I really like that term. How am I going to reinvent myself? And for me, that there's a real promise in that word. And so helping yourself understand that actually this is a time where I can try new things. And I don't have to get it right. I think
yeah,
that's one of the
okay.
things that's so important is like go out and try stuff. If you don't like it, fine. You now know you don't like it. So that's all
Tick
it
that off the
is.
list.
Tick it off the list. Go and try stuff out. Volunteer places. Use if you have skills that you really like using and you don't really want to lose them. Think about where can I offer those skills? Where can I take that isn't going to tie me into a job or tie me into a timetable? It's in my hands. And how do I reinvent myself? And I
Mm,
really like that phrase because it's like looking at, like we've said, where can I feel valued? What am I passionate about? And also understanding, and I think this is one of the things that people don't kind of think about, is that when you retire, the timing is up to you. You don't have to work 9 to 5. You don't have to do something 9 to 5. It's up to you how you structure your days or what you
mm,
do with your days. I find most people, once they've got into their retirement, they're almost busier than they were before,
yeah.
but they're busier doing stuff they love.
Mm,
Great. Other people, actually, I'm quite chilled. I do this and I do that, and I'm master of my own time. It's totally down to you what
it's
it looks
interesting, isn't
like.
it?
Yeah,
And the
totally down
things
to
that
you.
when I think back to when I had a job, I loathe mornings. I'm much more of an evening, like stay
Hmm.
up till 12, 1 o'clock. But then that's probably why I can't get up in the morning. But just lately, where the heat is on,
Yeah.
I've been getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I might, if I know it's a day where I've got some properties that are going through and I need some paperwork doing, I'll get up at 6 and I might work from 6 till 8. Then I'll go swimming because we've got a lake and I go swimming a lot now. And then I might come back, and then by the time I've got back and it's sort of 10ish, and then I've had a shower and it's getting a bit hot by then, I might just flop about for the rest of the day
Hmm.
until maybe say 4 o'clock when it's really, really hot. And then I'll come back in with the fan and I might get a bit more work done for another couple of hours if I've got stuff to do, or recording podcasts or doing all the creatives that go behind that. And then in the evening, I'm gardening through until dark. I'm
Mm,
basically, thank goodness for the solar lights because it's the only thing that's helping me get the last couple of plants in, and or I'm out there tending my tomatoes. So my day has gone from, you know, falling, being almost pushed out of bed at 7 o'clock to go to work at 9, to then finish at 5, to come home exhausted, to eat, to flop on the sofa, blah blah, and then go to bed and start the routine again. I'm now up and doing stuff, not every day, granted, but from, potentially 6 in the morning until 10 at night. I'm
mm,
that active. But every minute of that day is my choice. And it's
yeah,
interesting, isn't it, that we are so structured. What do you do also implies, when you tell me what you do in the job sense of, right, so I know where you live. You've just hinted that you work in the city. I know that you commute for a couple of hours, so there's no point me speaking to you between 7 and 9 because you're probably working. In fact, you probably leave at 6 so that you get there for 7, so you don't have to sit in the commute. And then you're putting in an extra 2 hours that you is not appreciated or financially recompensed.
yeah,
You're never going to have a lunch break off, so I can't ask you if you want to go out for lunch in the middle of the week. Then when you finish, then you're coming back for a couple of hours. You've missed the family. You're going to see them during the week. You're probably going to want to see the family at the weekend. The chances of me getting you to come out with me is slim because from you telling me your job, I understand everything about the box. It's not a box, the cage that you were in, that
hmm,
education and society has built those sides and put you there. And I don't know that people even think that they can squeeze through those bars earlier if they want, because they're not this wide. Those bars are this wide, and
yeah,
you don't even have to turn sideways. You can just choose to walk through.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And choice is such an amazing thing if you once you realize you've got it.
Yes.
But our society doesn't tell us that. We
No.
have to discover that for ourselves. But there's something I just want to pick up on because I think it's really important is that we've been asked for so long, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I think when we move into whatever retirement is for who forever, is who do you want to be?
Nice.
Forget doing, who do you want to be?
Mm.
And I think if you can start to contemplate that question, who do I want to be? Um, I just know that I've seen people really change when they retired. People who were driven and driven and kind of always angry with the world suddenly turn into these beautiful, soft people who are have got time for you, who've got time for their family, who've got time for their grandchildren.
Mm.
And it's a shift in who they're being. And
Yeah.
I think if we have to take that into consideration, and it's a really important question to ask, who do I want to be in the next 20, 30 years?
Because you're definitely never asked, are you? You're
No.
shaped through school into what you want to do. And if that doing is something that frustrates you, again, oh goodness. I mean, just think about all the passions that you've had over your life from everything. When I was 18, I was going to do scuba diving and I was going to become Jacques Cousteau's undiscovered granddaughter. And that was it. And at one point, because I loved photography and scuba diving, I considered going to Plymouth University and I was going to learn basically underwater photography, and my job would have been the North Sea. I am so grateful that I didn't get the A level that got me straight in. I might
Hmm.
have got in through clearing, but then I got a job and I went off in a different path. Because had I done that, my life would have been up north in the cold sea, under dark water, in poor visibility, taking photographs of, I don't know, pipes or whatever it would have been that I would have been photographing. And instead, that passion has been warm waters all over the world, photographing incredible fish and coral reefs and all the stuff that I've done.
Yeah, yeah,
And I could have been squeezed into that route. I would have been miserable because I would have been doing what I should do, which had all of those elements in there somewhere from historical, because they're in there, but they weren't in the right order to be
Hmm.
what gives me joy. I mean, I would have had loads of money.
And the key word in all of that is what I should do.
Mm,
And that's the word that I'm always questioning. I don't want to know what you should do. I want to know what you want to do.
yeah,
And
permission.
yeah, it's totally about that. And we've created these, so many people have created these lives on the shoulds, and I'm like, throw them out. Don't want
Yeah,
to hear it.
yeah, that was school for you.
Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
mentioned a couple of things in here that I'd really like you to send me over the links so I can put them in the show notes, please. One was it Riley who did the TED talk?
Yes, Dr. Riley Moynes, I can send you that for
That,
sure.
and then there was a book about the five regrets.
Yes, that's by Bonnie Ware. I'll find that. Yeah,
Yes,
and
if you
send
could
that
send those
over to
over,
you.
I'll stick those in the show notes for everybody.
Sure.
But I could carry on talking to you for another 4 hours, but I know that you've got things that you'd like. I mean, obviously you've chosen to speak to me now, but I think there's other things you've chosen to do as well for the rest of the day. So I
Well,
just
I'm in the UK at the moment, and
uh,
I'm going to see my great nephew again, and he's only 3 months, and he's gorgeous.
well, that's definitely something that I should let you get off to and do now. So just a quick thank you for your time, Jessica. It's just been so great to just have this conversation with you, but I really appreciate all that you've shared.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's my passion, and particularly around retirement retreats. I love helping people understand that this next bit of life, doesn't have to be daunting. It can be exciting and fulfilling and meaningful. And so, yeah, I'll talk about that till the cows come home.
Fine, absolutely. We'll have to come back and find another angle so that you can talk some more with us. But I also want to thank you, the listeners, because we appreciate your time listening to this podcast. And you know that I love to leave you with insights. Flipping heck, I'm only supposed to do 3 wishes, is what I normally do. But I just do want to pick up on all the different words first. So know that you have a choice. Know that you are valued. You've just got to reframe who and where that value comes from. You have permission to find your passion and to reinvent yourself. And so, if I try and put those into 3 things, I think out of that, a big one for me was what you said about a loss of wage does not mean that you are not valued. I think
Hmm.
that's a really powerful one. I think getting the word purpose into the word passion, something that evokes an emotion in you that brings joy. Because purpose, as you said, is, curing cancer, world peace, and climate change all on a Sunday afternoon. Whereas passion might just be, as you say, seeing your grandnephew. And then
Yes, exactly.
reinvention. Reinvention
Hmm.
is about, well, reinvention almost feels like it's the key that unlocks everything else, that it's your choice. Whether you're going to go down the route and just follow the line because that's what makes you feel comfortable and wait till you're given permission at a set age so that you can stop work if that's where you feel more comfortable. But plan the reinvention that's on the other side of that door now. And if it
Mm.
comes to you
Mm.
unexpectedly, that doesn't matter. That just means that you've got the opportunity to reinvent yourself sooner. However, it comes to you, you have the choice to respond. And I hope that
Yes.
that's what you've got from this conversation with Jessica for sure.
Yeah. And I'd just like to say, if anybody wants to have a chat with me, they can. You've got the links and everything. I'm very happy to have a chat
That's
about what might come
exactly what I was
next.
just going to say next. I will put all of the links to Jessica in the show notes so you can book a call, you can reach out and contact her on LinkedIn. Maybe if you're either approaching retirement or we've encouraged you to think about it and you're nowhere near retirement, then you want to book a call and
Hmm.
go on one of her fabulous retreats. I'm definitely going to recommend that to a couple of friends now that we've spoken. But all of those notes will be all contained down the bottom. If you go through the show notes, you'll be able to get in touch with everybody. So look, let me just bring this to a close and say, if this has stirred something in you, maybe a new question. Maybe you've got a sense of relief that you're not alone, that you have the permission to rethink, to reinvent, to choose. You know that you don't have to face retirement head on. You don't have to rely on the corporate retirement seminars, which often are financially based, which is fine. But are they awakening that passion in you? It's your chance now to take control of the narrative, to draft out. Remember, it's not a hard copy, to draft out the script for the next few years. And you don't have to plan the next 10, 20, 30 years, just the next couple of years. What do you fancy testing out? What do you fancy playing at being for the next couple of years? Draft that out and see what that looks like. And it might be that you do it in some form of hybrid way. And I'm speaking to Chris and Susan Beasley later, because they've also written a chapter and they call it a hybrid life. Maybe you do want to fully give up work. Maybe you want to do what that man does and leave corporate and go and run a kite surfing shack on a beach somewhere. It's totally your choice. And make sure that you read Jessica's chapter, which is Retirement, a Loss or a Gain. It's your choice. And that's in the book. Coincidentally, we're recording this on the 14th of July, which is the day that the book has come out. You're going to be hearing this a couple of weeks later. So go in to Amazon, make sure that you get your copy, whether you want it digitally, whether you want a hard copy, because it is absolutely packed full of wisdom, real world guidance from people that are doing this and help you to make that shift from fear to excitement and reinvention. And of course, as
Yeah.
I've already mentioned, if anything resonates with you today, don't let the momentum stop here. You've got the book that you can get hold of that you can read. You can check out the show notes so that you can contact Jessica directly. If you want to, you can book a call with me and I can help you with the wealthy life, which brings more of it in. But if you're looking for that inspiration and reinvention and reignition, if you're looking for that reignition of your passion, then Jessica is absolutely your lady, because you don't want to just fall into retirement. Design it and make it something you love. Jessica, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you,
Well,
Vicky. It's been fun.
yes, thank you. And I can't wait to have let's think of something else that we can talk about. Maybe you could do some case studies for us or something, and we can have another excuse to get together and have a natter.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you very much for your time, Jessica. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, next week you'll be able to hear Chris and Susan Beasley talking about a hybrid life, which takes this on a bit further. For now, thank you very much. And I wish you a wealthy life. Bye.
Bye.